Hello, hello. Welcome to the Fantasy Aceball podcast. This is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on X at Fantasy Aceball. And you can find me on the YouTube at the Tim Kanak because yes, I am going to video, especially for some of these early podcasts, early season preview type things that I'm going to be doing because I want to show you the fScores as I'm talking about them. So you can see live on my spreadsheets where all of my players are currently ranking, and you can actually see the fScore numbers up above me in the picture-in-picture thing right here. So you can actually see the numbers and follow along with me if you want to watch this on YouTube rather than listening on Spotify or on Apple Pods or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. I highly recommend checking out the YouTube channel. It is the Tim Kanak. I also have a bunch of my scouting videos and stuff from the previous season from 2024 that are on there. So if you want to check that out, that's where you will find the videos so you can better follow along. Or if you're like me and you just listen to the podcasts while you're working out, you don't really have wherewithal to watch something because you're lifting heavy weights and such at the same time that you're listening, then I understand if you listen to the podcast version. So I'm going to try to make this as audio friendly and as visual friendly simultaneously at the same time as I possibly can. I'm not new to video format. I have a YouTube channel for my companies that I do a lot of stuff on. So this should be a relatively smooth transition for me. So just hang on here as we're doing this. And next episode, actually, I have another episode coming in the next couple of days here. I have a guest coming on. And I'm going to wait because last time when I announced Raymond was going to be on this podcast, dude got COVID. So poor Raymond. Everybody send your thoughts and prayers to Raymond Atherton at Raymond Atherton on the X because dude got vid as soon as I dropped that he's going to be on my podcast. And I do not want to jinx the next person. So I'll wait until we're actually recording and then you'll see who's coming on. I don't want to jinx someone else and get someone else COVID. Uh, so we're going to get into this one then. And you'll have to wait and see who's going to be the special guest on the next one. But the next one, we're going to be doing a catcher, second base, and shortstop early preview. This time we are just doing first base and third base, basically corner infield early preview. We're not going to go through every single name and go into thoughts on where each one ranks. I have actually only done my fScore rankings. I have not tiered anyone out yet. So you're going to help me here, or I'm going to help myself as I'm talking to myself on video with you. Kind of go in and plan on how we're going to be tiering some of these guys out here. So let's start off with first base, where there are still a decent amount of free agents at first base. So you can see I accidentally typed into that cell, but you can see anyone that has a yellow marker right now in my fScore spreadsheet means that they are still a free agent and they have not signed. So their current fScore is relative to change based on park factors and lineup factors of their new team. So the guys that are highlighted yellow right now may end up changing based on where they sign, if that makes sense. Or if they get traded. Like, for instance, if Casas or Vlad gets traded, I'm going to have to add in and remultiply their park factors and their lineup factors into their fScore. So they are subject to change. The only categories, if someone does move, that are going to change are going to be the power category here and their total and future fScores. Reason being is that the power category has a park factor in for home runs in my equation. The total and future fScore columns have the external factors category that is going to affect these outcomes. External factors, I have in there a lineup factor. So where are they hitting in the lineup and how good is the lineup around them? And then there is also a ballpark factor. So that's more for just generating general offense instead of home runs, which is what power is showing. Power is showing you how many more home runs are going to be in this park. Whereas I use the regular park factor for just general offense in the total in the external factors category. So we'll start at the top here. You can see Vlad Guerrero Jr. is my number one first baseman for this year, for 2025. And even though he and Freddie have the same total F score, which means that they kind of grade out to be that my F scores should show that they should be in relatively the same range. Vlad, based on his age, has a much higher potential future outcome. And Freddie, based on his age, turning 35, which is a bad year, right? Goldschmidt turned 36 last year, and we saw a big drop off at that age. So 35, 36 is where things start to turn sour. So we might start seeing the downturn of the Freddie Freeman career. But then again, these Hall of Famer types generally they'll age at a slightly different rate than some of the other guys. So just keep that a little bit in mind. And you'll also see here, I have my new beta factor, right? We have a beta factor. And when you're looking at betas in a stock sense, one is average. But that's because there are so many data points. When we're doing our beta for fScores, we're looking at a 3-year, year-over-year beta, and that's how we come up with our beta based on WRC plus. If somebody doesn't have a beta, it means that there's a missing year of data because either they were hurt or they didn't qualify for enough at-bats in that season, because I have minimum qualifications built into my beta formula so that if a player doesn't meet those minimum qualifications, then they're not going to be included in the formula so as not to create an outlier. That's what that is supposed to do. So looking at this, I would say that like 3 is more like the 1 of beta. So like meaning that 3 is pretty even. Like if someone rates out with a 3 beta, they're pretty consistent if they're in the 3s. You can see Freddie Freeman has a 338 beta, and we know Freddie Freeman is very consistent. So anyone that like really anyone with a 2 to 5 beta is very consistent. If you're under a 1, you're just like so consistent that it's kind of like annoying. Like you can see Brennan Donovan actually has the lowest beta of any player that I ranked with a 0.01 beta, meaning that he is the most consistent player in baseball. Now you see like Reese Hoskins here with a 24. This dude's all over the place. You can see right here Alec Burleson with a 24. He's all over the place because he had a good year last year and he was pretty bad before that. So the guys with the wild beta with like higher than a 5 beta are the ones that are going to be more inconsistent. Like Cody Bellinger, not a model of consistency. He has almost a 15 beta. So it's good to keep these things in mind. You can see actually like even Spencer Steer has almost a 15 beta. So if you have a 3 beta, that's actually good. I just want to put that out there because someone who's familiar with stock trading might be like 3 beta. That's friggin' wild. but you have to remember that when you're looking at stock betas, there's just a million different data points. That's going to kind of give you more calmness around your beta. It's going to provide more data points to even things out. Whereas when I'm doing this, we have 3. We're only doing 3 data points of the previous 3 seasons. So there's a lot more noise, but it just still helps. And could I have done this beta based on like monthly WRC pluses or weekly WRC pluses for each player? Yes, I could have, but it would have taken me way longer. And I own 7 companies. So, and I work like 80 to 100 hours a week. So just didn't have time. I do what I can. So this is only a 3-year beta. It is what it is. It helps, but it's not the end all be all. If somebody wants to do a lot more work and create a beta, all I did was I took WRC plus for hitters, and for pitchers, I used Sierra because I just wanted one data source. So if you wanted to do a WRC plus on a weekly basis, you would probably get a lot smoother of a beta. And do that over like a 3 to 5 year period. And then, of course, you want to have minimum qualifications because you don't want to have like a 1 at bat week factor in on that. So you would have to have like at least a minimum per week on quantity at bats or quantity innings pitched or whatever to kind of smooth out the sound on that type of beta. Or like even like a monthly basis would be pretty nice, I think. I just didn't have time to do it. So if anyone wants to do it, that's how I did it. Pretty easy. All you do is create spreadsheets, and there's beta formulas where you can plug in on sheets, and you just have to enter your data points in. It'll take time. Don't get me wrong. It's not, like you said, it's easy. It's easy to figure out in your mind how to do it, but the time to have to draw everything over from Fangraphs or like create CSVs and copy and paste from CSVs is a bit of a pain. So just want to throw that out there. But anyway, you can see Vladdy's number one. I have Vladdy ranked over Freeman, even though they're both 120s. Even though Freeman's probably going to go higher in drafts, I just think Vladdy's in for a big year. I think he's 26, which is like the prime breakout year. That's like the peak season of most baseball players is like 26, 27, 28. So I think Vladdy's prime for a really big year. So I'm in on Vladdy this year. I have Vladdy over Freeman. I'm going to keep it that way. How I'm going to tier this out, I'm not really sure. I don't know if I want to put Harper in the same category as Freeman and Vlad. I probably will. And this is the thing too, is look, Pete Alonso and Bryce Harper have the same fScores. But the reason they have the same fScores is only because Pete is more durable. Harper gets hurt. Harper is definitely the better player. They have similar power. Harper has slightly better plate skills. Harper is a little bit faster, but the contact skill for Harper is 112, and for Alonso, it's only 98. And that hit tool is probably the most important factor. Like if I'm looking at these just an FYI, if you're trying to read this, I think that contact is probably the most important because if you don't have contact, all these other skills are going to be irrelevant. So I think contact is probably the most important out of all of these skills to have for a hitter for fantasy purposes. Number two, I would say, is power. So it's going to go from contact to power in order of importance. And then I kind of run into difficulty on this. I'm like, is durability more important? Because durability for hitters can be, I don't know, if you, like, I feel like some guys are just injury prone. And it's important to have guys that play. Like the whole reason Spencer Steer is ranked this high, and Raymond brought this up to me. Why is Steer ranked so high? Like he's not that great. It's all because of he steals 20 bags, right? But besides that, it's the durability. It's that this dude plays every day and he plays multiple positions. And the fact that he hits high in the Reds lineup in a really good ballpark really bumps up his total fScore. And so that's why Steer ranks so high. Like he's not really like the best player. Like he's above average, but like what puts him ahead of Casas, what puts him ahead of Naylor and Walker in my rankings is that he plays multiple positions. He hits in a high in the Reds lineup in Great American Small Park. That is literally what drives Spencer Steer's ranking for me. And I actually made a mistake last year with Steer. I was ranking him lower because I was like, his fScores were still high like this, but his other data, like you can see 94 contact. I'm like, ew. I'm like, I'm going to rank him lower because I think he's in for regression. But his carrying tool is really just being above average at everything, like slightly above average in like every facet, minus the contact, but the plate skills, because he has a good eye, kind of outweighs it, kind of like balances that out for him. But just being an above average player and hitting third, fourth in the Reds lineup in Great American Small Park just really is a boon. And I'm going to take that more into account this year. Is like, is this dude going to play? Is he going to play multiple positions? Because I ended up last year drafting a ton of guys that rated really well on some of these skills in my fScores, but didn't rank well in durability because they were platoon bats. And like platoon bats are okay if you're in a daily league, but when you're in weekly leagues, and even though Jock Peterson was awesome and I had him everywhere last year, there were weekly leagues where Jock Peterson, if you need him to be your third outfielder and he's not hitting against lefties and you have a 3 lefty week and he only is playing 3 or 4 games, it's going to kill you that week. So you're like running into like the high skill platoon type players. I did that last year and it helped. Like I was fine in daily leagues, but weekly leagues, it smoked me. So that's something that I'm going to take more into consideration. Not just like this guy is really good. His power is really good. His contact's really good. He should be ranked higher. Why are people sleeping on it? It's because they're not going to get the at bats. So you really, depending on your league type, if you're in weekly leagues, at bats are just so important. Just getting those ABs and like getting the boring at bat guys like Steer can win you a league versus like getting a sexy name who is gonna, probably hit less. So I would just keep that in mind. It's something I kind of learned last year that I'm going to take more weight into the durability column here instead of just factoring like, okay, this guy has mad power. This guy's power. I'm going to rank this guy higher because, like let me give you an example. Like I could look here and be like, look at Rowdy Tellez, right? Rowdy Tellez has a 96 contact, a 105 discipline, and a 116 power. I should take that over like Kyle Manzardo, right? I don't know. Tellez is going to be in a platoon. He's going to get cut because they don't want him to get his plate appearance maximum. So these are the types of things you have to factor in. And that's why, like, I'm just going to kind of follow the fScore right now, the total fScore and the future fScore, instead of following the skills, because that's what I did last year. Is I was re-ranking guys based on skills. Now I'm kind of follow the fScores here. Casas is an interesting one because you can see 74 durability, but he's still ranked pretty highly in mine. I think that he's finally going to have a healthy year, and you can see his future fScore. So that's why I'm ranking him this high, is based on the future fScore, because his regular fScore is only 96, and that's all because of this durability here. His one thing that kills him is he's so slow that, like, he's a lefty, and slow lefties are going to get rocked anytime they pull the ball and it's not in the outfield. So these types of guys are never going to get infield hits, and that means their batting average is going to be low. He's basically a younger Max Muncy. Like, if you want to make it simple, like, Casas is basically young Max Muncy. Good hit tool, great plate skills, great power, slow lefty. So yeah, he's young Max Muncy at first base is Tristan Casas, in my mind. So again, looking at these things, I'm probably going to weight it contact, and then power is going to be number 2, and then durability is going to be number 3. And then if I'm looking at young guys, I'm going to probably be looking at discipline more than if I'm looking at older guys, because older guys, there are some older aggressive guys who just make it work. Maybe their bat speed slows down later, like a Javi Baez, and then they get rocked later. Like if you're looking at like Jake Berger with a 72 F discipline, he's only 29. He should probably be able to still make this work for a couple of years. But am I betting on Jake Berger as a 33-year-old? Hell no. I'm staying far away from Jake Berger once he hits 33, especially if he's still in Miami, where power is going to be sapped. So if I'm looking at older guys, I'm going to be looking more at speed. If I'm looking at rookies, discipline matters, because the rookies who come up with terrible plate skills are going to get rocked. Like, you can see, like, for instance, Thomas Saggese right here. Even though he had a really good Arizona Fall League, his OBP was great, and a couple of years ago he had a really good OBP. He does not walk enough. Like, he doesn't strike out very much. Like, this year he kind of did in triple. But for a guy who should have been taking advantage of the balls and strikes from the ABS, I actually don't even know if Memphis had it, but he should have been walking more in AAA, and he really didn't. So he has a reputation as someone who's going to have a good eye, but I'm not really sure. And then his power and speed are kind of like subpar. Like, I think this is a dude who's going to be like, I don't know, 12 to 15 bombs with like 10 steals. He's going to be kind of boring. If he gets full-time playing time, he might be like 12-12 or like 15-15. Like, basically, he's like has a little more power and a little more speed than Brendan Donovan. But his hit tool is not as good right now, and his plate skills are not nearly as good as Brendan Donovan. But he's younger. He has time to grow into that Brendan Donovan with like maybe a little more power and a little more speed. But I don't think we're going to get like a stud here. I don't think we're going to have like a 25 homer guy. Like, earlier I had kind of like comped into a Matt Carpenter with a little more speed. I don't know if he makes that like career turn that Carpenter did, because if you look at Matt Carpenter's career, his first like 5 years, he was like a 12 to 15 homer guy, like his first like 5-6 years. And then whenever I think like Pujols left, he's like, oh crap, I need to get more power. He started pulling more fly balls, and his batting average went down, but he was hitting more bombs. He'd hit like 30 bombs. I don't know if we'll see Saggese take that career arc, to be honest, because I don't think he's ever going to be seeing himself as a number 3 hitter like Matt Carpenter fell into. So that's that. Just to kind of give you a general emphasis on some of this stuff. So, like I said, I'm going to try to talk like, okay, what do I want to do with the tiers here? So, like, let's look at this. I think I'm probably going to do this. I am not going to have Alonso in the same tier as Harper, Freeman, and Guerrero. I think I'm going to have, and I almost want to put Guerrero in his own tier. And I almost want to put like Freeman and Guerrero in one tier, and then Harper in his own solo tier, and then Alonso and Olsen in another tier. But I think, just to make things easy, because Harper does have like borderline first round skill, even though he's probably like a beginning of the second round, I think he and Freeman are going to go pretty close together. I'm going to put Freeman, Harper, and Guerrero in the same tier. You see, I just marked a line in here. The next tier, I'm going to put Alonso and Olsen together. And I've had these two dudes in the same tier for like 5 years running, basically like ever since I started the fScores. Because look at them. They're almost mirror images of each other. Olsen rates a little bit better for contact, discipline, and power right now, but he's also 1 year older than Alonso. And Alonso is a little bit better in speed. And they're very similar. Like either one could have the better year than the other. Like it wouldn't surprise me. And some of this may depend on where Alonso goes. Like if Alonso goes to a very like hitter friendly park, it could get pretty interesting. But I'm going to keep these two guys in one tier. The next tier, Spencer Steer is going to be the leader of this tier here. And then we have Steer, Casas, Naylor, Christian Walker. I'm going to keep all these guys in the same tier. Bellinger, I think Bellinger and Steer are actually kind of similar statistically. The difference, you can see Bellinger basically has a better hit tool but worse speed, but they kind of will end up in the same place, I think. Vientos had a really good year last year, but I don't know if I trust his output so far to put him in the same tier. By fScores, because he has a future fScore of 114, I probably should. But his discipline is so bad that he could just be terrible. So like he scares me. I think he's like a worse Casas. So like, but he's a righty. The good thing for Vientos is he's not going to run into like the pull issue that Casas can. So he'll probably have a better batting average, even though his discipline is so much worse. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to exclude Vientos from this next tier because I want to see like one more year of production. I don't think he's trustworthy enough to have in the same tier as like Steer, Casas, Naylor, Christian Walker, and Cody Bellinger. So I'm going to leave Vientos in this same tier with like Goldschmidt. And do I really want to put Nitlow in the same tier as Goldschmidt? I think Goldschmidt even rated better last year, even though he's older. Like, look, he still rates for a 113 to 105 fScore. I mean, he's getting older, but some of this might be where he signs. If he signs with like the Astros or the Diamondbacks, a good offensive team, like he could still be in for a really good year production wise, especially if he's hitting in the middle of that lineup. I think that Goldie could be in for a nice rebound year. Just getting out of Busch, like that's a bad team he was a part of last year. Getting out of that stadium and like going to a better stadium with a better lineup around him I think like he could really produce. So what I'm gonna do, I think, is I'm gonna have Vientos and Goldschmidt in their own little mini tier here, and then I'm gonna put Lowe and Busch because they're pretty similar, I think, in a separate tier. With Arias. Arias is just such an outlier because it's like, what do you need here? Do you need all batting average? He's like such a hard guy to take. It's like he's going to get you batting average. He's going to get you runs, but what else is he going to do? His power is nil. So he's never going to do anything for you there. And like, this is a tricky one here. Alec Burleson's probably going to hit in the middle of the Cardinals lineup. So he's probably going to get a decent amount of runs and RBIs, and he should be playing every day as like the DH / like backup left fielder next year. He's got a good hit tool. His power is not as good. And last year was the first year he was hitting for power. And then the second half, it actually kind of like died down, his power. So Burleson, I'm not really sure what to do with him. He could fall into like this Spencer Steer. He could be like Spencer Steer without the speed is I think almost what I would want to call him. And he's a lefty too, so that's worse. But like I think he's kind of like a lefty Spencer Steer without the speed and not in Great American Small Park. He's in a pitcher's park instead. So that's that's how I'm going to describe Burleson. But I think I'm going to put this tier here as Lowe, Busch, Arias, Burleson. Luke Raley is an interesting one. This dude has some speed, has some power, but he's like not great. He's kind of inconsistent. Even though he has a 141 beta, because he does the same thing year over year on like a weekly basis, he's not very consistent. He'll have like a really good week and then a really bad week. Like I have a 12-team league where I was adding and dropping him like all year last year. And the thing that the cutoff here is that like while I was adding and dropping Luke Raley, I'm not going to be adding and dropping a guy like Lowe or Arias. I actually did drop Bush in that league last year, so I'm not going to say anything. But I think this is where I'm going to put the cutoff here. Even though Rayleigh's fScore kind of lines up with these guys, like he's a guy that is just add drop. So I'm going to kind of separate these guys here. I'm going to put Rayleigh in the same tier as our Jake Berger and Reese Hoskins, where we have like power, but inconsistent power. And Paredes is going to be in this tier too. So we're going to have Rayleigh, Berger, Hoskins, and Paredes in one tier. I'm not going to put Cronenworth and Donovan in that tier because, actually I will, because Cronenworth and Donovan are going to get a surprising amount of like, even though they won't hit for the same power as guys like Berger and Hoskins, they're really consistent. They're both consistent, and they're both going to get you a nice batting average, and they're both going to get you like 10, 15 homers. And they're both great in points leagues. And Yandy is also great in points leagues. So let me throw Yandy into this tier too. This is going to be a big tier. And Vinny. I'll put Vinny P in that tier too. Shanuel is just like all points league. So like we'll separate him out by himself. I'm not putting Shanuel in that tier. So we can see now we have a tier of Shanuel, Alec Boehm. I should probably. This is the thing. I'm gonna keep Shanuel ahead of Boehm because I'll take Shanuel ahead of Boehm in a points league, but in a regular league, I'm gonna take Boehm out of Shanuel. Any categories or roto league, I'm taking Boehm. And then we've got Torque with the rebound. Will he fully rebound? I don't really know. I am not gonna put Tyler Black in that tier though. So this is gonna be a little mini tier. We're gonna put Shanuel, Boehm, and Torkelson in one little mini tier here. Tyler Black, we need to see him playing. And Horwitz plays, and this dude was good last year. But Tyler Black, you see here, the big difference, they're pretty similar. Horwitz has a little bit better of a hit tool, a little more power, but Tyler Black has this huge potential speed outcome here. But is he going to play? So I'm going to put Black, Horwitz, Santana. We have our big risk here. Nolan Jones is the guy who could really zoom up. I had Nolan Jones up in this range last year in like the Vientos range here with Goalie and Vientos. But he was so bad last year and he was hurt. Can he get back up there? I think he can. But it'll be interesting to see if he can. My fScores don't really like him this year because he was just so inconsistent and so bad. Soderstrom is another guy I kind of like. I'm going to leave Soderstrom in this category here. Vaughn, we know what he is, so I'm not putting Vaughn there. Vaughn and Wade and Pavin Smith are all like boring guys that we know what they are. So I'm going to cut this tier off right here at Tyler Soderstrom because especially with that catcher eligibility, it makes Soderstrom pretty interesting in many leagues because if you can be your catcher too and he's playing first base, like that's a super interesting name. And if you're in a 2-catcher league, or if you're in like a 15-team league and you just want like a flex, if you want like a catcher first base flex, that'd be a pretty interesting name. Vaughn, Wade, Pavin Smith, Ryan O'Hearn. These guys are all kind of boring. I'm gonna make them their own boring tier here, like boring light production. Like look, they're all these guys except for Vaughn are all platoon guys. Wade, Smith, and O'Hearn are all platoon guys. So then we've got Heston Kierstad here. If he had full-time playing time, I'd like him a lot more, but he hasn't been getting that. And the Orioles just signed like Tyler O'Neill too to block him. So have fun. Kierstad, Manzardo, very similar. Aranda, like these guys are all just. I want to see. I'm like curious. How much are they going to play? Nick Kurtz. That's where I'm going to end this tier here. Here, this is the fun tier that could like really break out. Heston Kierstad, Kyle Manzardo, Jonathan Aranda, and Nick Kurtz. And Nick Kurtz is going to be like all about how much playing time he gets. How early are the Athletics going to call him up? You can see here, my fScores freaking love this guy. 106 contact, 129 plate skills, 115 power, 86 speed. Like if this guy is up early, I would zoom him up my rankings. Like I would have him probably in like right around Burleson. Like I would have him right here in this like Bush, Low, Arias, Burleson tier. If the A's were like, if they're like guaranteed to call him up pretty early. But if we only get half of the season or a back end of a season from him, that's the risk here of Nick Kurtz. But if we know that this dude is coming up by like May or earlier, like if he's coming up super early, then like I would have him all the way up here because he's going to be awesome. Down here, we've got Josh Bell, Jared Triolo, like backups. These are your backups. If you're in like what do you call it? A DC or something, and you need backups. Ryan Mountcastle. You can see I have Ryan Mountcastle all the way down here. The ballpark changing is going to help him, but I just don't know if the Orioles see him as like a full-time guy. I think he's more of a bench hitter. I think Kierstead could get more run this year than him. Mayo could take at-bats from Mountcastle this year. O'Neill, when he's healthy, is taking at-bats from Mountcastle. O'Hearn's going to take at-bats from Mountcastle. And how do you like this? The Orioles now have O'Hearn and O'Neill, like the O's. Like, what is it? Like, what's going on here? We need some mix over there, too. We got Bryce Eldridge right here. I'm going to put him in his own category. So we're going to put Bell, Triolo, Brown, Mountcastle is going to be like probably starters, but they're probably not going to get full playing time and they're not going to be super productive. Eldridge is a dude. If he's up early, it could be also super productive. You can see here he's only 20 years old. So like he has a lot of room for growth. I think it would be kind of silly for the Giants to bring him up early, but who knows? They've got Chapman. He already hit AAA. They've got Chapman. They just signed Adames. Maybe they want to like take the risk and bring Eldridge up early. If I'm them, I would slow play it and maybe bring Eldridge up on like the James Wood timeline so you get the extra year of eligibility. That's probably what I'm doing if I'm the Giants. But Hunter Goodman, you can see like some mad power potential here. Then we've got free agents, Justin Turner. He'll probably start somewhere wherever he signs. Rowdy Tellez, David Fry not coming up for half a year, so that's kind of dinging him here. Tyler Locklear, I kind of like. He's a little interesting. He has some work to do. He might start this year as the first baseman for the Mariners. There's actually probably a decent chance. But I think you have 15 to 20 homer at bat here with like 10 steals. He just has to work on some things, but I think he's interesting. Davison De Los Santos, an interesting name. This is the killer here for De Los Santos because I love the power and I love the production we got from him. But like he has a 45 F discipline. So we're in like Oscar Gonzalez territory here as far as like plate skills with Davison. Like he's in like Javi Baez range. So he's like, do we have a first base Javi Baez without the speed here? That's probably what we're looking at with Davison. He might have a couple just like killer years, but like this is scary. This right here really scares the crap out of me. I thought I was gonna be super high on him, but like that right there really scares the crap out of me. And that's why I comped him to Christian Encarnacion Strand. You see him here? They're very, very similar. Look at these two dudes. They're so similar. Their fScores are basically the same thing. The only difference is Davison De Los Santos is not coming off injury. CES is coming off injury. CS is in the better ballpark though, so it's very possible CS is going to be a better Davison. But like, look at these discipline scores here. Like they both have terrible plate skills, so that's why they're on the bottom here. I'm just going to leave this as like its own last tier because any of these guys could just kind of pop. You see, we've got Juan Yepes, Ty France, free agent, Sajaci here, Solano. Like a lot of these guys can be playing time dependent. Miranda's boring. Like he's okay in a points league just because he's going to give you like boring, consistent production. Miguel Vargas, like what happened to this dude? Is he going to make it work? I don't know. I don't really think so. Anthony Rizzo really fell off last year. LeMahieu, old, falling off. Brandon Drury, will anyone even sign him? He might be toast. He might go the way of Brandon Belt, just not get signed this year. Xavier Isaac, I don't know if he's coming up until the very end of the season. CJ Kafis, like the Guardians have a ton of those guys. Maybe if they trade Naylor, we see him sooner. Trey Morgan, another Rays guy. Like I think Morgan and Isaac have a shot of like getting the call in September. So just names to keep the eye on first base. So that's going to tie up first base. Let's jump over now to third base. I'm going to try to, let's see here if I can get this now. I'm not familiar with the screen sharing thing, so we're new on this. We're doing this live, Bill O'Reilly style. I'm not going to say it though. I'm going to keep this as PG as I can. So let me see as I try to get this going here. Share screen. Let's share the screen. Sorry. Anyone listening to this podcast right now is like, what the hell is going on? I'm new to the share screen thing, so we're trying to figure this out to move to third base. And I figured it out. Here we go, y'all. You see it now. You see me. You see third base. We're done with first base. We tiered out first base. So let's get to third base here. We have Jose Ramirez at the top of the fScores. He has a 139 fScore, which is better than anyone at first base. So he's by far the top player that we're talking about here. He is a tier of his own. I am not going to put Devers or anyone else in the same tier. So Jose Ramirez, a tier of his own, numero uno, 139 fScore. Just great player across the board, obviously. Next, we have Devers and Jazz. Jazz has a higher fScore, but especially in Yankee Stadium, this dude was so good as a Yankee. And like he could be in Jose Ramirez territory next year if he actually stays healthy. But that's the big question with Jazz, right? Like you see the beta 1295 versus Devers' 4 beta. Jose Ramirez is near 4 beta. So like I said, like 3-4 is good beta. Jazz, I'm gonna keep him in the same tier as Devers and Machado. But yeah, I'm just gonna sandwich him, I think. Devers is basically a younger Machado without speed. Machado's going to put up tons of runs in RBI, so he's staying up there. But Jazz is the big wild card. Jazz could be better than Devers. Just keep that in mind. Even though I have Devers ranked ahead of Jazz, Jazz could easily outperform Devers. It's just all based on health. I think if he plays full time, he's going to be worth more than Devers because of the speed, which you can see 188 speed. Dude had 40 steals last year. Next tier, we have Austin Riley. Matt Chapman actually has fScores that should push him to like the Machado, Jazz, Devers range. But Chapman has been inconsistent in his career, even though he has a 2.6 beta because he ends up doing kind of similar stuff. And like last year was a career year. Do I want to buy a 32-year-old off of a career year? Maybe. I mean, like it wasn't a contract season. That's the interesting thing is like he performed better in San Francisco. Maybe he just loves being on the West Coast. Having Adames there now is going to actually maybe make him better. Maybe you get Eldridge in the lineup by the end of the season. But you know what? I kind of like Riley, Chapman, and Suarez is this little tier here. I'm going to throw Bregman in there too, maybe. Do I want to? He doesn't have the power. We don't know where he's going yet. I think if Bregman returns to Houston, I'm going to put him in this tier. But if Bregman ends up somewhere like Detroit, it's really going to, his power, he's going to only hit like 10 or 15 home runs in Detroit. So I think until we see where Bregman is going to go, I'm going to leave him outside of this tier, which is kind of funny to think that I have Suarez and a whole tier above Alex Bregman. But this is all going to depend on where Bregman signs. So we're going to leave this tier here of Bregman, Royce Lewis, Jordan Westburg. If Bregman signs with Detroit, he's probably going down below Royce Lewis and Westburg for me. Royce Lewis, I love, but he's always hurt. That's dinging him here. Jordan Westburg, he got hurt. We need to see consistency from him. I actually really like Westburg a lot. If Bregman goes to, and I almost rank Westburg ahead of Royce, but Royce just has a lot higher of a ceiling, I think, than Westburg. But Bregman, it's all going to depend on where he ends up. I think if he's in Detroit, I'm putting him all the way down below Caminero. But you see here, Bregman, Royce Lewis, Jordan Westburg, Mark Vientos, Junior Caminero. I think this is my tier here. I'm going to leave Max Muncy out of this tier because even though I think Muncy and Vientos are very, very similar, Vientos is a righty. Muncy is going to be better in points league than Vientos because of the plate skills. But in a roto league, I am going to be going Vientos over Muncy, points Muncy over Vientos. You know what? Do I really want to put Muncy and Berger in the same tier? I think Muncy's just better. I think I'm going to leave Muncy in this tier. He's risky, but I'm going to leave him in this tier here with Bregman, Royce Lewis, Jordan Westburg, Mark Vientos, and Junior Caminero. And then Berger is going to be pushed back down to his own tier. And I've got to kind of keep it similar, right? I had Berger in the same tier with first baseman with Paredes and Donovan last time and Cronenworth. So basically our cutoff here on this tier is going to be Donovan or Norby. I'm going to probably put Norby here. I just don't really like Ryan McMahon. I think he's boring. I'm going to leave him in the Alec Boehm territory here. But we have in this next tier, Jake Berger, Matt Shaw, which is all going to be how much playing time is he going to get. And is he even going to have third base eligibility? He played third in the minors. So I think depending on your league, he might have second and third because he's probably going to play second when he comes up to the majors. So just interesting thing to keep an eye on here with Matt Shaw and what position eligibility he gets. But I've got Berger, Shaw, Paredes, Donovan, and Norby in a tier here, which is tier number, 5 for third baseman. Now we coming down into this tier of Ryan McMahon, Alec Boehm, Nolan Arenado. And I have to look at first base. Who did I have in the Boehm tier of first base since their dual position is just Shanwell, Boehm, and Torkelson. So we're gonna have here McMahon, Bohm, Arenado. If Morel was on another team besides the Rays, I probably would not put Morel in this tier. But because Morel is on the Rays, I'm leaving him in this tier because I think they can fix him. They pretty much fix everybody they work with, and they're going to be playing in a minor league ballpark, which is going to help hitters. So let me leave Morel in this tier with these guys. He's probably going to get a decent amount of playing time. McKinstry, if he was playing full time, I would probably put him in this tier. You can see McKinstry is very, very good, but he's just a super sub guy. I don't think he's going to get enough PT. These guys are all full time starters. Morel might be might be in a platoon though, and he's kind of actually, I'm going to leave Morel in his own thing. I'm gonna just cut this off, and it's just me, McMahon, Bohm, and Arenado here. Morel is going to be in this tier here with McKinstry, Tyler Black, Luis Rengifo. Even though you see Rengifo doesn't have good fScores, it's all about the durability. I think Rengifo is really good, and he plays different positions. We got Willie Castro in here. I'm going to leave Shea Whitcomb out of this tier, I think. No, I'm going to leave Whitcomb in this tier because Whitcomb is kind of like Morelish, where they both have terrible hit tools. It's like Whitcomb has nice power speed combo, but his hit tool is terrible. And this is all going to depend on if they re-sign Bregman. So if the Astros do not re-sign Bregman and then Whitcomb is starting, I'm going to keep him in this tier. If he's not starting, then I'm not going to have him in this tier. And I'll leave Michael Garcia in this tier too. These are the steals. And then this is going to be a big tier. I'm going to keep Tana in this tier. I like Tana a lot going into this year. I think Tana's going to give you 12, 15 bombs, 260 average, 270 average with like 15 steals. So you might get like, I don't know, 15-15 from Tana with full-time playing time and multi-position eligibility, which is kind of nice. Noelvi Marte, I'll leave in this tier. Josh Young, is he going to be healthy? If he's healthy, he's bumping up into this McMahon, Bohm, Arenado tier. It's his health that's keeping him down into here. Vierling and Mayo, I'm going to also put in this tier. So this is a huge tier. This is like a grab bag tier, like pick one and pray. Basically, is this tier: Morel, Zach McKinstry, Tyler Black, Luis Rengifo, Willie Castro, Shea Whitcomb, Michael Garcia, Jose Tena, Noelvi Marte, Josh Young, Matt Vierling, and Kobe Mayo. That's what we're gonna call this tier. Pick one and pray. This tier here is all like backups or like guys that are just kind of pitch in. They're not going to be main fantasy contributors for you. Candelario, I'm way down on this year. I thought he was going to be so much better. He was kind of like, he had a good stretch in the summer last year, but besides that, he was not very good in Cincinnati. But this tier is going to be Josh H. Smith, Joey Ortiz, Justin Henry Malloy, Jeimer Candelario, Zach DeZenzo. That's all playing time based. How much playing time is DeZenzo going to get? If the Astros don't sign a first baseman and DeZenzo is starting first, I'm probably going to be bumping him up. And this is going to be that last tier for us, just like last time. Davison De Los Santos, even though he will probably be all first base. James Triantos, look at this fScore, 102 to 106. If Triantos plays, if this dude is up early and he becomes the Cubs super sub guy, like, I think he's just going to get a ton of steals. He's going to get a hit for a high average. He'll probably hit 280. And then if he played full time, you're looking at like a 50 steal guy potentially from Triantos, 40, 50 steals. Now, if he's only playing part time, that's what's going to limit him, which is what pushes him back into this tier. And we don't know when he's going to get the call up. And a lot of that might have to do with if the Cubs can trade Hoerner or not. If they trade Nico Hoerner, then they can plug Matt Shaw into second base. And then Triantos could be like their steals Hoerner type guy that comes in and he plays all around the diamond in the outfield at second, at third, and just grabs bags whenever he can. So Triantos is an interesting guy. Like, he's almost could be like your Ben Zobrist or like your John Birdie. He'd be like your young John Birdie for this year is like how I would almost label James Triantos. Young John Birdie for the Cubs. Then we got Triolo, Josh Rojas, Jace Young, who I don't really like so much. Like, you can see his fScores. They're not really good, especially in Detroit. If he was out of Detroit, then he might be a 20-homer guy. But in Detroit, he's like a 15-homer guy, 10 to 15 homers. Just that ballpark's going to sap him. He's just not going to be great because of that ballpark. Even though he does have good plate skills. Actually much better plate skills than his brother. You can see they're kind of opposites. Like Josh Young has a way better hit tool and way more power than Jace. Jace is like all plate. Neither of them are really fast. Moncada just complete flyer. Like he's not even on a team; he's a free agent. So like, where's this dude going? Ramon Arias, Thomas Sajaci, Orelvis Martinez. Like, is he going to even play? He has power, 114 power. But besides that, he's kind of trash. Like he's like a worse version of Davison De Los Santos, which I've talked about on Prospect One with the Welsh a number of times. Jose Miranda, Cabrian Hayes just got like useless, right? Like maybe it's 260 with 10 steals and 5 bombs. Like, do you want that? Here's John Birdie now. So if you want the new John Birdie, go up here and get the young guy, James Triantos. Like, we'll see when he comes up. Got Cam Smith here. Cam Smith, I think, is probably going to be up by the end of the year. Just based on the progression that he had last year and how well he was hitting, I bet he makes a September call-up cup of coffee. If he was like a regular starter, he'd be ranked higher. Gio Urshela, Donovan Solano, Miguel Vargas, Casey Schmidt, Kevin Biggio, Brett Beatty all the way down here. Like, if you want to take a flyer on Beatty, have at, but I'm not a fan. Sterling Thompson with the Rockies, I think he's up by the end of the year. I think that hit tool is going to develop further too. Like, I think this hit tool could be much better. He had a bad year at the beginning of the year this year, and he finished strong though. So we'll see how he finishes up. But Sterling Thompson could maybe be like a better Cabrian Hayes in Colorado at some point. Curtis Mead, just, I don't know. This guy's just so like below average on everything. I don't know what happened to him as a prospect. I just think that like being a platoon guy with the Rays, like not getting a chance. Like, this is a dude who needs to go to another team, and maybe he breaks out with another team. Like, send Curtis Mead to the Nationals, and let's see what happens. Talking about the Nationals, Brady House down on here. House is probably up by the end of the year, but you can see here his plate skills last year were atrocious, and that really tanked him. I really liked him going into last year, but like he was terrible last year, and he's probably up by the end of the year. But like, he needs work. He needs a full year in AAA this year to kind of like hone the skills, and let's see if he can kind of rebound some of these skills here. And then we've got some of the other guys that were on first base: LeMahieu, Jury, Ezekiel Duran, and last guy on here is Brock Wilken, who might get a cup of coffee for the Brewers at some point. You can see here, pretty solid. I think the power is going to grow. The contact was terrible last year. Like, this dude's hit tool is atrocious. Welsh really likes him, and I kind of got high on him because of Welsh. But now that I've factored his fScores in, like, this dude really needs to work on contact rates. And maybe part of it is like, yeah, he got nailed in the face and it messed him up. Let's see how he plays this year. Like, I'm not going to rule him out. Let's give him another year. But I think he has a chance of getting a cup of coffee, especially if it's a strong year this year, Brock Wilken, for third base. And that is going to be the podcast, and or the YouTube, whatever you're watching on. I hope this was informative for you. I hope that if you're listening on pod and not watching, that you were able to follow along. Maybe when you're done, you want to come back and you can watch. I'm literally giving you all my fScores here. I'm going to be posting these probably on Fantasy Pros in writing once they're all done, maybe before Christmas. I'm still working on starting pitchers right now. And the next pod is going to be on Tuesday, and we're going to be talking catchers, second base, and shortstop. So I'll see you next time. Get better, Raymond. Follow me on the X at Fantasy Aceball, and find the YouTube channel at the Tim Kanak, and check this out. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Please follow me on these platforms. I know for you Blue Sky people, I just don't want to make another thing. I'm like so anti-social media. I don't want more crap on my phone. I already don't use Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any of that other crap. Just because I'm a simple man. I live by KISS standards. Keep it simple, stupid. I just don't want more crap that I have to do. So I'm just sticking to the X, because no offense to Blue Sky or the people that are migrated to Blue Sky, but I just don't think that platform is going to last. Like Truth Social and Threads, who's on that, right? Or like Rumblr, or like these other things. Like, there are just so many social medias. X is the king of them right now. and Elon's really smart. He's going to make it work. Even if you're not an Elon guy, like the dude is like the smartest guy in the world. So I'm not going to bet against that. So I'm just going to stick to the X. But that's it. I've got YouTube. If you don't like X, go on YouTube. So you can check out the video on the YouTube. Thanks, everybody. Peace out.